Welcome to the world of science fiction Neon's Alien. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a new story from Neon's Alien universe. The shuttle shook as it entered Earth's atmosphere. Nuala gripped her seat tightly, her small fingers trembling. She wasn't used to turbulence. On her planet, Lurea, the skies were always calm, soft, and warm. The idea of flying through a burning sky filled with storms and fire clouds made her want to cry. But she didn't cry. She was here to prove herself. Nuala was the first of her kind, a soft-skinned, big-eyed Lurian, to join the Galactic Young Explorers program. It was a peaceful exchange system that sent young aliens to visit different planets and learn their cultures. Most students chose calm, safe places. Nuala, she chose Earth. Why? Because Earth had a name whispered across the stars. The Death World. Other. Students laughed when they heard her assignment. Earth? A tall Venari boy had chuckled. That place is full of fire, poison, and angry animals. You'll melt in a week, said a feathery girl from Jivak 3. But Nuala didn't back down. I want to understand why humans are different, she said quietly. Why they're so strong. No one had an answer. Not even the teachers. The shuttle landed with a hard thump. The door opened and Nuala stepped out, and instantly stumbled. Gravity. It was heavier than she expected. She looked around, panting. The sky was bright blue. The air smelled sharp, alive, like it carried a storm inside it. The wind hit her next, fast and cold, pushing her small frame backward. She nearly fell again. A figure stepped forward and grabbed her arm. Careful, a voice said. Earth doesn't go easy on anyone. She looked up. It was a human boy, maybe her age, maybe older. Short brown hair, wide shoulders, and a scar on his left cheek. I'm Mason, he said. I'm your Earth guide. They traveled to a small town called Red Rock Hills, near forests, rivers, and distant snow-covered mountains. The colony station was simple: stone, metal, and glass. Nothing like the floating cities of Lurea. Mason showed her around. The dorms, the mess hall, the training fields. But Nuala barely listened. She was focused on the world outside the windows. The trees were too tall, the animals too loud, the ground too hard. She whispered into her recorder. Day 1. Earth is not like home. I think the planet is angry. Her first real shock came during breakfast. She saw fire on the table. Humans called it toast. They burned food on purpose, then ate it. Nuala nearly fainted. Mason laughed. Relax, it's normal. She tried one bite. Crunchy, bitter. Her tongue tingled. She spat it out and drank 3 glasses of water. Mason handed her something sweet and soft. Try a pancake. That's safer. Later that day, a bird swooped down and grabbed her data pad. It flew off, screeching. Nuala screamed. She chased it across the courtyard, waving her arms. Mason just stood and shook his head. Don't worry, it'll bring it back. Why would it do that? It just likes to mess with people. And it did come back, covered in poop. By sunset, Nuala sat on a bench, exhausted. I can't survive. Here, she whispered. Mason sat beside her. You're still alive, that's a good start. I miss Lurea. I get it, Mason said. But Earth isn't trying to kill you. She stared at him. You're wrong. He laughed. No, Earth is trying to toughen you. That night, Nuala looked at the stars. Same sky, same stars. But everything felt different now. Earth wasn't peaceful. It wasn't safe. But it was alive. More alive than any place she'd ever known. And deep inside, a question formed. If humans can live here every day, what does that make them? Nuala made a mistake the moment she opened the window. She only wanted fresh air. Instead, a buzzing, angry insect flew straight into her room and stung her face. She screamed so loud, the entire dorm woke up. Mason rushed in with a rolled-up magazine. Where is it? It bit me, Nuala cried, pointing at her swollen cheek. Mason looked around calmly. That was just a bee. That is a weapon, she shouted. He shrugged. Bees are part of the ecosystem. Important, actually. Nuala stared in horror. Your ecosystem is evil. Later that day, they walked to the greenhouse for her botany class. Halfway there, the sky darkened. Clouds gathered like a fleet of angry ships. The wind picked up. The trees bent. A storm. A real one. Not like the gentle blue rain on Luria that tickled your fingers. This was earth rain. Loud. Cold. Heavy. It slapped her like thousands of tiny rocks. Lightning cracked above her head. Thunder roared. She covered her ears and screamed. Mason simply kept walking. You're going to get wet, she yelled. I'm already wet, he replied, smiling. When they finally reached the greenhouse, she was soaked and shivering. Inside, the teacher handed her a towel and a plant pot. Today, he said, we learn about carnivorous plants. Nuala blinked. Carnivorous? Meat-eating, Mason whispered. She looked down into her pot. The plant hissed. I want to go home, she whispered. Back in her room that night, Nuala made another log entry. Day 2. Earth has bees with poison, air that throws water, and plants that eat animals. I have decided to avoid grass forever. She looked at her swollen cheek in the mirror and sighed. The next morning, Mason took her on a relaxing hike. The path led through a forest full of strange sounds. Birds that screamed, bugs that glowed, branches that snapped behind her for no reason. Something's following us, she whispered. Mason looked around. Probably just a fox. What's a fox? Small furry animal. Sharp teeth. Curious. Sharp teeth? You'll love it. They reached a cliff with a wide view of the valley below. The sun broke through the clouds. The wind carried the smell of pine and rain. The trees looked like green oceans. Nuala said nothing for a long time. Finally, she whispered, It's beautiful. Mason nodded. Earth's dangerous, but it's also alive. Then a loud crack echoed behind them. The edge of the cliff gave way beneath her. She slipped, fell, screamed, and then a hand grabbed hers. Mason held her tight, pulling her back up inch by inch. They collapsed on the ground, breathing hard. You okay? He asked. She stared at him. This planet wants me dead. He grinned. Now you're starting to get it. That night something changed in her. The fear was still there, but now it came with something else. Respect. Earth wasn't soft like Lurea, but maybe that was the point. She recorded a new log. Day 3. I fell off a cliff, got attacked by weather, and nearly died from a bug bite. But I also saw a fox. It was cute. I think I want to see more. She looked out the window, at the wild dark sky, glowing stars and moving trees, and for the first time, she smiled. Nuala sat by the window, staring at a group of human children playing outside. It was raining again, cold and windy. The kind of storm that would shut down entire cities on her home planet, Lurea. But the kids? They ran through the mud, laughing, slipping, getting dirty, and cheering when someone fell the hardest. No one cried. No one complained. They just got back up, over and over again. Mason entered the room, holding 2 steaming cups. Hot cocoa, he said, handing her one. You've earned it. She took a small sip. It was warm and sweet. Safe. Mason, she said softly, why don't humans fear pain? He smiled. We do, but we don't let it stop us. She looked back out the window. You all fall in, just laugh. Mason sat beside her. It's how we grow. We get hurt. We heal. We try again. That's the human way. Later that week, Mason took Nuala to visit his grandmother in the mountain sector. The journey was long and cold. Wind howled. Snow covered. The trail. Nuala shivered. How do people live here? Mason grinned. Wait till you meet her. Grandma Tess was thin but strong. Her hair was silver like Lurian crystal vines. Her voice was sharp and warm. She cooked over real fire. No machines. No tech. You're the Death World visitor, huh? She said, placing soup in front of Nuala. Yes, ma'am, Nuala replied politely. Good. About time the galaxy saw what we're made of. After dinner, Grandma Tess showed Nuala an old photo. A young girl stood on a frozen cliff, her leg bent wrong, covered in snow. That's me. 15 years old, got stuck in a blizzard, broke my leg. Nuala's eyes widened. How did you survive? Crawled 6 kilometers through snow and ice with a shattered knee. Took 2 days. You didn't die? Didn't plan to. Tess smiled. Nuala sat in stunned silence. On the way back, Mason said nothing. He let the story settle in her mind. Nuala finally whispered, You all are different. We're built by the world we live on, Mason replied. If Earth didn't try to kill us, we wouldn't be this strong. That night, Nuala looked at her hands, soft, thin, fragile. She touched her reflection in the mirror. Then she looked outside, where the wind blew trees and lightning danced in the clouds. She wasn't afraid anymore. She was curious. The next morning, Nuala asked Mason to train her. He blinked. Train? Yes, she said firmly. Teach me how to survive like a human. Mason smiled. All right, but don't say I didn't warn you. They started with running. Nuala hated it. The air burned. Her lungs, the ground tripped her. Her legs screamed after 10 minutes, but she kept going. Then came climbing, swimming, and building fires without tools. She failed, a lot. She cried once, but didn't stop. She fell, but stood again. Mason watched quietly. Something inside her was changing. One day, after hours of training, Nuala sat on a rock covered in dirt and sweat. A small cut bled on her arm. Her hands were blistered, but her eyes burned bright. I think I understand now, she said. Understand what? Mason asked. Earth doesn't make humans strong. It forces them to be. It's not a death world. It's a training world. Mason chuckled. Exactly. That evening, Nuala recorded a new log. Day 10. I fell 6 times, got bit twice, and burned my finger. But I'm still here. Earth isn't just a hard place to live. It's a place that makes you better if you survive it. She closed the recorder, stood at the window, and whispered, I want to become like them. The forest was too quiet. No wind, no birds, no sound. Nuala felt it in her bones. Something was wrong. She tightened her grip on the glowing lantern and looked back at Mason. We should go, she whispered. But Mason was staring into the dark trees ahead. We're not alone. They were, part of a school survival exercise, an overnight camp in the wild woods outside the colony. It was supposed to be safe, controlled, monitored, but tonight, something had changed. The teachers had gone to check on a power issue in the camp's signal tower, leaving the students inside temporary shelters. Then the lights flickered. The generators died, and the forest began to move. Nuala's sharp ears caught the first sound. Click, click, hiss, click, low, sharp and alien. Mason pulled her behind a tree. Poachers. Poachers? She repeated, confused. Alien hunters. They track death worlds to steal animals or people. Why would they come here? For you, he said flatly. Suddenly, something heavy landed on the ground nearby. A shadow stood tall, its armor glowing faint blue. A mask covered its face, but its breathing was loud and hungry. Nuala's heart pounded. The creature spoke, in a voice like ice. Target confirmed. Half unit from Lurea. Valuable genetic material. Capture intact. Mason grabbed Nuala's hand. Run! They sprinted through the forest. Roots tripped them. Branches whipped their faces. Behind them, glowing eyes followed. Blades buzzed. Nets flew. One hit a tree beside Nuala and exploded. She screamed, but didn't stop. She was scared, exhausted, but something inside her refused to fall. They reached A cave near the cliff's edge, the same one Mason had shown her during training. They slipped inside, breathing hard, hiding behind rocks. Nula's knees trembled. They want me. Because I'm weak. No, Mason said. Because you're rare, and rare things are always hunted. I can't do this, she whispered. Mason took her hand. You've been doing it since day one. Outside, the poachers closed in. One of them entered the cave. Mason raised a sharpened stick, ready to fight. But before he could strike, Nula stood up. She didn't scream. She didn't run. She threw dirt into the creature's visor, then grabbed Mason's spear and jabbed the creature's leg. The poacher roared and fired wildly, missing them both. Mason tackled the alien's back, while Nula smashed its breathing tank with a rock. It hissed, gasping, and fled the cave. Silence returned. Nula fell to her knees, shaking. Mason looked at her in disbelief. You just attacked a trained hunter. I didn't think, she said. I just moved. He smiled. That's what surviving is. When the sun finally rose, rescue drones arrived. The poachers had escaped, but not with Nula. The teachers were shocked. The other students stared at her like she was someone else, but she didn't care, because something had changed forever. She wasn't soft anymore. That night, Nula recorded a new log. Day 14. I was hunted. I was almost taken. But I fought. I never thought I could. But Earth has taught me not to wait for heroes. Sometimes we become our own. She paused, then added, I understand humans now. They weren't born strong. This world forced them to evolve, just like it's changing me. The blood on her arm was real, warm, sticky, red. Nula stared at it, blinking slowly. Her breathing was uneven, her heart pounding like thunder in her chest. She should have been terrified. But instead, she smiled. It had been 3 days since the attack in the forest. The poachers were gone. The colony was secured. But Nula wasn't the same. She no longer jumped at thunder. She didn't flinch at stings. And when a wild beast charged out of the jungle near the training yard, she was the one who stopped it. It was early morning. Mason had gone to the fields, but Nula stayed back to train. A low rumble came from the trees. A long, four-legged predator, called a razorfang, emerged from the brush, growling, its teeth glinting with venom. The humans screamed and backed away, but Nula stood still. The razorfang lunged. She didn't run. Instead, she stepped sideways, grabbed a broken shovel, and drove its handle between the beast's jaws as it snapped. The creature thrashed. Her arm got cut by one of its claws. Blood spilled, but she held her ground. And the beast, confused, hurt, and outmatched, turned and ran. Everyone stared, even the teachers. No one spoke for a moment. Then Mason shouted from across the field, wide-eyed. That was the most human thing I've ever seen. Nula laughed through the pain. I think Earth is finally accepting me. At the medical station, the nurse treated her wound. You should rest, the nurse said gently. Nula shook her head. I want to go back out. The nurse blinked. You were nearly killed, but I wasn't. Later that evening, Nula sat beside Mason near the river. She dipped her hand into the cool water and watched the wound on her arm. It hurt, but she liked that it hurt. Pain doesn't mean I'm weak anymore, she said softly. Mason nodded. Now it means you did something brave. She picked up a stone and held it in her hand. My people don't bleed, she said. Our skin seals fast, our bodies avoid damage, but here, she looked at her arm. I bled. I felt it, I survived it. She tossed the stone into the river. Pain taught me I'm alive, and strength isn't about being safe. The next morning, Nula volunteered to lead the new students on their first hike. They were all alien kids from soft worlds. They wore too many layers. They carried bug spray. They asked nervous questions. Nula smiled at them kindly. I used to be like you, she said. Scared, quiet, soft. Then she pointed at the forest. But Earth changed me. Not because it's cruel, because it gives you a chance to grow. On the trail, one student tripped. He cried, wanted to quit. Nuala knelt beside him. "It's okay to fall," she said. "But if you stay down, you'll never find your strength." The student stood up again. That night, Nuala made another log entry. Day 17, I bled, I hurt, but I stood. Earth didn't break me, it remade me. I am no longer just a visitor. I am something new. She looked out at the dark forest. Once terrifying. Now it looked like home. She whispered, "This death world gave me life." The wind howled across the cliffs of Red Rock Hills, but Nuala didn't flinch. She stood tall, dirt on her boots, a scar healing on her arm, her alien eyes locked forward. Behind her stood 5 nervous new students. In front of her, 20, human teens with crossed arms and quiet stares. This was no class, this was a test, and Nuala had been chosen to lead it. The human survival cadets called it the Gauntlet. A 2-day endurance challenge. Climb the cliff, sleep in the wild, find the signal beacon and bring it back without help. Only the toughest made it through. It wasn't meant for off-worlders, but Nuala had been invited. Not as a guest, as a competitor. Mason walked up beside her, smirking. "Ready, Deathworlder?" She raised a brow. "I thought that was your name." He chuckled. "We might have to share it now." The challenge began. The humans ran like wolves. Nuala followed, her pace steady, her breath sharp in the cold air, legs burning from the climb. Her hands bled from sharp rocks, but she smiled. She loved the burn now. That night, the group camped beneath a cracked tree. The fire roared. Sparks floated into the stars. The humans talked about near-death stories. Broken arms, snake bites, snowstorms. When it was Nuala's turn, she stood quietly. "I used to think Earth was cruel," she said, "but it was never trying to kill me. It was trying to make me strong enough to stay." Murmurs filled the circle. Even the toughest students nodded. At dawn, only 4 made it to the beacon. Mason, a tall girl named Risa, a quiet boy with a limp, and Nuala. They returned together, carrying the beacon on their backs. When they reached the finish line, the crowd went silent. Then someone shouted, "Welcome to the pack!" Cheers exploded around her. The humans circled her, clapped her on the back, handed her a jacket marked with the red fang, the symbol of survival. Nuala stared at it. "You sure?" she asked. "You earned it," Mason said. Later that night, she sat with Mason by the old tree where they'd first trained. She wore the jacket, not as decoration, as proof. "You're not a visitor anymore," Mason said. "You're one of us." She nodded. "I don't want to leave." "You don't have to," he said. "Or maybe now you go back and teach others." The next morning, Nuala stood before the new group of off-world students. They looked nervous. She smiled. "You're scared. I was too. But fear doesn't last here." She held up her scarred arm. "This world will test you, break you, burn you." Then she touched her jacket. "But if you don't give up, it'll rebuild you stronger." That night, her voice recorded one more log. Day 21. I was called weak, soft, delicate. But Earth taught me how to fight, how to fall, how to rise again. I am no longer from Lurea. I am from Earth now. I'm part of the pack. And far above the wild forests and roaring cliffs, the death world whispered her name. Not as a warning, but as a welcome. The ship door hissed open. Soft winds from her homeworld, Lurea, swept into the cabin. Nuala stepped onto familiar grass. It was warm, safe, gentle. The sky glowed with soft pinks. Birds chirped in harmony. Flowers opened as she passed. But something was wrong. She didn't feel at home anymore. She walked through her childhood town. Friends stared. Neighbors gasped. Her jacket, Earth's survival symbol, was still dusty. Her hands were calloused, her steps firm. She had scars now, real ones. The kind Lurians had never seen before. At the science hall, the council called her in, 10 elders. Long robes, soft voices. "You've returned early," one said gently. "Did Earth send you away?" Nula stood tall. "No, I chose to come back." A pause. Was the death world as violent as they say? She looked each elder in the eye. Yes, and worse. But it was also truthful. The room went silent. "What do you mean?" another asked. "Earth doesn't pretend. It doesn't give comfort without cost. You survive by changing, or you don't survive at all." Later, she spoke at her old school. The students looked curious. Some looked scared. She showed them her scars. "This," she said, "was from a beast. It taught me to react." She pointed at her knuckles. "This was from training. It taught me to resist." And then she touched her heart. "This was from fear. And Earth taught me to face it." The next day, an earthquake hit one of Lurea's coastal cities. It was the worst in a century. Panic spread. Systems failed. Rescue drones stalled. No one knew what to do. No one. Except Nula. She ran toward the disaster site, climbing fallen buildings, pulling people from rubble, organizing search teams by voice alone. When fire broke out in a school, others stood frozen. She ran inside. When she carried a child out in her arms, smoke clinging to her hair, her people finally saw it. She wasn't soft anymore. She wasn't fragile. She was earth-forged. Reporters asked her how she did it. She answered simply, "Earth doesn't forgive, but it transforms. And once it changes you, you can survive anywhere." A week later, the Lurian High Council asked her to help lead the new interspecies survival program. She agreed, on one condition: that Earth be the first training ground. They hesitated, whispered, worried, but Nula only said one thing: "If our people stay sheltered, they'll stay afraid. Let them struggle. Let them fall. Let them rise. Let Earth teach them, like it taught me." She recorded one final log. Final entry: "I went to Earth scared. I left stronger. I returned home a stranger, but not a lesser one. I now understand. Earth is not a death world. It's a world of fire that tempers the soul. It doesn't accept weakness, but it gives strength in return. I went there small. I came back a survivor." Above her homeworld, 2 flags now flew, one with the gentle silver vines of Lurea, and beside it, Earth's flag, waving rough and proud in the wind. Reminder to every world that even the smallest can survive the hardest world and walk away unbreakable.